attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
As the preseason looms just around the corner, let's take a look at the defensive roster for the Los Angeles Chargers heading into 2024. With brand new defensive corner Jesse Minter calling the shots now, both veterans and younger players alike are trying to make an impression and state their case to make the final 53-man roster. And by the way, if you're wondering who's making the Chargers roster on the offensive side of the ball, be sure to check this video out. Anyways, without further ado, let's hop right in, starting in the trenches with the defensive line group. At nose tackle, we got Poona Ford. The veteran free agent signing from the Bills is making the team for sure, as he's essentially the only starting caliber nose tackle on the roster, making him extremely valuable on Minter's defense. At 5'11", 310 pounds, he's built like a tree stump, and will likely play the 0 or 1 tech, and be on the field on specific downs and distances. Then you got Christopher Hinton, who's a former Michigan Wolverine, and has experience playing the system, having played under Mike McDonald, who's the current head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, during his final year with the Wolverines back in 2021. He runs a very similar defensive scheme that Jesse Minter is trying to install now, so yeah, that's definitely an advantage for him. However, he's largely been a practice player so far in his career, and is unlikely to make the roster, given how niche this role is. Then you got Gerard Clark, who's an awesome player at Coastal Carolina, and one of my favorite undrafted players from last season, who I thought had a real shot at making the final roster. Unfortunately, he spent most of last season on the practice squad, and it's looking like a similar outcome unless injuries occur ahead of him. Then we have our defensive tackle, starting off with Tito Bonia. The former 5th rounder in 2022 has been hampered by a torn patellar tendon suffered back in his rookie season, which has kept him off the field. However, when healthy, he's shown flashes, especially down the stretch last season, where he started to look more like himself. If he continues his trend, he'll easily make the cut as well. Then you got Justin Boygby, the 4th rounder from Alabama this year. He's virtually locked, given that he's one of Joe Ortiz's pick. The rookie hasn't been stellar at camp, but it's likely because he's still adjusting to the pros, and will be better as the season goes on. He's pretty unique in the sense that he can play both inside and outside from the 3 tech all the way to the 5, similar to that of Tuli Tuipulotu, who we'll be talking about later on. So yeah, his versatility is another factor that will land him on the final roster. Next up, you got CJ Okoye, who hails from Nigeria by way of the International Pathway Program. He had a great preseason story last year, notching his first ever sack against the Rams after being completely new to the sport. He still has a ton of ground to cover in terms of both skill and knowledge of the game, but is essentially guaranteed a practice squad spot under the IPP program, where he doesn't really count against a 16-player limit. Hopefully this will allow him to continue to grow and develop as a player. For our defensive ends, we got Morgan Fox, who's by far the best interior pass rusher on this team. He'll likely line up as a 4 technique, specifically as a 4I, and wreak havoc alongside Joey, Tuli, and Khalil. So yeah, there's absolutely no doubt he's making this team. Then you got Scott Matlock, the 6th rounder out of Boise State last year. He's been continuously named as one of the leaders of this team by Harbaugh, and has been with the first team defense so far in camp. However, I don't think he's at that level yet, in terms of starting caliber guys. I'm not saying that he's not making the team, but it'll be a lot better if he's a depth player. And lastly, you got Michael Mason. He's an undrafted defensive lineman from Coastal Carolina, and originally played at Warford College, where he spent 4 years at. During his final collegiate season, he was able to notch up 7 sacks across 13 games for the Chanticleers, but it's looking like a long shot for him to make the roster, and even as a fringe guy on the practice squad, due to the talent ahead of him. Moving to the second level of the defense, we've got our linebackers, which has been seen as one of the bigger holes in the roster. However, the inside linebacker group has been pretty impressive thus far in camp, with Denzel Perriman leading the charge. The former second-round pick in 2015 returns to the Charger after spending time with the Raiders and Texans the past 3 years. At this point of his career, he's likely the experienced veteran who will likely help guide this young linebacking corps, similar to what guys like Christian Kirksey did before he retired last year. He's a definite roster lock and a starter at that, but I think he'll lose playing time down the road, as the coaching staff will want to see younger guys like Junior Colson and Deion Henley gain more experience, similar to what he did with the Texans with Christian Harris and Henry To'oTo'o. Then you got Junior Colson, the rookie 3rd rounder from Michigan this year. He'll likely start beside Perriman once he gets back in the fold, given his familiarity with Minter's defense. He did just get his appendix removed, which is a similar procedure Joe Burrow had back in 2022, where he missed around 2 to 3 weeks. But he'll probably be fine, as he played through a lot worse, having had mangled hands throughout the entire national championship run last year, so yeah. Then you got Deion Henley, the 3rd rounder out of Washington State last year. There's no question he's making the team, as he's still got a lot of untapped potential, after dealing with a hamstring injury for large chunks of the season last year. I could also see him having even more impact on special teams than he already has in the return game, as he's had experience there during his time in college. And with the new kickoff rules where you essentially have 2 returners on a run play, bigger running back type bodies could be the new norm as opposed to speedsters. Next up, you got Nick Neiman, who's a really experienced player in the linebacker core. He started off as a core special teamer, but worked his way onto defense and started 3 games last year. He'll likely be relegated back to the 4 phases of the special teams, but if injuries do occur, I would feel good about him being on the field. And lastly, you got Troy Dye. He's a free agent signing from the Vikings, and overlapped with special teams coach Ryan Ficken while he was there, so that's why he was brought over. But yeah, he's definitely a core special teamer who's making the team off of that. And yeah, fun fact, he was teammates with Justin Herbert at Oregon, so yeah, there's that. Unfortunately, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste and Shane Lee are unlikely to make the team. However, out of the 2, I think Shane Lee has a better chance of making the practice squad. The undrafted player who played at Alabama for 3 years before transferring to USC for his final 2 collegiate seasons was a freshman starter for the Crimson Tide, and was able to rack up 86 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 1 interception during that season. And yeah, he definitely has some potential that could be tapped into. Shifting over to one of the deeper position groups on the team, we have our outside linebacker or edge group. First up, we got Joey Bosa. The 4-time Pro Bowler is a surefire starter for the Chargers, but staying healthy has been the biggest issue the past couple of seasons. And he's currently dealing with some kind of hand or wrist injury, but yeah, hopefully it's a minor issue and he can be the premier pass rusher that we all know he is. Next up, we got Khalil Mack, who just surpassed the century mark on sacks last season, collecting a whopping 17 of them last year, including a video game-like 6-sack game against the Raiders. He's been a definition of consistency, having never missed a game during his tenure with the Chargers over the past 2 seasons. But yeah, hopefully he'll be able to continue to terrorize quarterbacks this season, and yeah, in case you're wondering, he's making the team. Then you got Tuli Tuipulotu. The all-rookie phenom has become a regular starter once Bosa went down, and is looking like a premier pass rusher in the next few years. With both inside and outside versatility, it'll allow Minter to put a NASCAR package together with Bosa and Mack and create havoc for offenses. Next up, we get Bud Dupree. The veteran pass rusher from the Falcons is also making the squad. He'll be a good rotational piece and provide even more juice to the platoon of guys on the roster. Then you got Chris Rumph. The former 4th rounder from Duke has been an average at best so far in his career, and he'll likely meet the team off of contributions through special teams, as well as providing more depth in the pass rush department. Unfortunately, that leaves Ty Shelby, Andrew Farmer, Tremont Morris-Brash, and Chris Collins as the odd ones out. Out of these guys, I think Tremont Morris-Brash could have the best shot to push Chris Rumph for that final edge spot, but yeah, he's definitely a prime candidate to be brought back to the practice squad, alongside Andrew Farmer, who played 8 games last year for the Chargers, signifying his value on special teams, which Ficken could advocate for. As for Savion Jackson, he was just waiting to free up space for quarterback Luis Perez from the UFL's Arlington Renegade, so yeah, there's that. Perez will likely be a camp arm competing for the QB3 spot. Yeah, I don't think he's making the team either. Shifting over to the secondary, we've got the cornerbacks up first. Asante Samuel Jr., heading into his 4th year with the Chargers, is a definitive CB1 of the group. He's coming off a career best 75.6 coverage grade, as well as a career high 13 passes defended last season. Hopefully he'll be able to parlay that performance into next season, so yeah, it's safe to say he's making the team. Then you got Christian Fulton. He signed a 1-year $3.1 million prove-it deal this offseason, as he struggled with injuries over the course of his career with the Titans, having never played a full season during his 4-year tenure with them. Along with that, his on-field performance the past 2 years have been largely disappointing, which is why the Chargers were able to buy low on him. He'll definitely slot in the CB2 spot with how thin the group is, but the hope I'm sure for Minter is to bring out the ability Fulton displayed during his rookie season and his time at LSU. Then you got Jasir Taylor. So far in camp, it seems like he's firmly locked up the starting slot spot, so that solidifies his spot on the team. And as a nickel defender, he'll probably share time with Derwin James on blitzes, as Minter's defense is predicated on having a surefire tackler who can also apply pressure on the quarterback. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see how he fares up in a brand new system. Next up, we got Dean Leonard. The Canadian-born player out of Ole Miss has steadily improved over the past 3 seasons, after being drafted in the 7th round back in 2022. He was able to start a couple games down the stretch last year, and did fairly well, I'd say. But yeah, he'll slot into the backup outside corner spot, and will make the team off of his depth and special teams value. Then you got the rookie corner in Cam Hart. The 5th rounder from Notre Dame is without question making the team, as he's Joe Ortiz's pick. He's an inside track to elevate himself up the depth chart as he reunites with Chris O'Leary, who spent the previous 6 years at Notre Dame as a defensive analyst and defensive backs coach, and is now the safeties coach with the Chargers. He does have a history of shoulder injuries, which could impact his tackling ability, but that can definitely be cleaned up. Joining him is fellow rookie Tariq Still. He was taken just a couple of picks before Cam Hart, and the 5th rounder out of Maryland will likely take up the backup slot role as he continues to grow. He'll firmly be in the plans of the Chargers as Joe Ortiz continues to revamp this roster, so expect him to be on the team as well. With 6 corners already making the roster, that means Matt Hankins, Chris Wilcox, Thomas Harper, Zamari Walton, and Robert Kennedy, who's got a great name by the way, will make the cut. Out of this group of guys, I think Thomas Harper has the best chance to be brought back to the practice squad. He's got experience playing both corner and safety at Oklahoma State and Notre Dame, and so far in camp has been aligned as a slot corner. The undrafted player also received the 4th most guaranteed money at $30,000, which is a good indication on what the team thought about him coming out of the draft. Another Fighting Irish who's worked with Chris O'Leary, the familiarity they have working with each other could allow him the opportunity to continue to grow and play somewhere down the line for the Chargers. Moving on to our final position group, we've got the headhunting safeties in the back end, where we'll start off with the face of the defense in Derwin James. Entering year 7 for the Chargers, the All-Pro safety has been the heartbeat of the defense. He was designated to wear the green dot and play multiple positions the past few seasons. But yeah, it seems like there was just too much put on his plate. With Minter's defensive scheme, it should be a lot less taxing as he doesn't overcomplicate things, which should allow Derwin to play faster and be more like himself. He'll still be in that star and rover position on defense because of how special he is. But yeah, he'll do a lot of similar things that Kyle Hamilton on the Ravens and Mike Sanistro, who's now with the Commanders, did, guarding and blitzing off the slots. Next up, you got Alohi Gilman, one of the few guys retained by this new regime after signing a 2-year, $10.1 million deal this offseason. That really tells you all you need to know about his chances of making the roster. One of the most underrated safeties in the league in my opinion, he played extremely well when healthy last year, which garnered him an 89.2 PFF grade, that ranked 4th amongst safeties. He'll be looking to build off of that and complete the other half of the safety tandem. Next up, you got AJ Finley. He's heading to his 2nd year and is another undrafted guy from Ole Miss, which there seems to be a ton of. Primarily a special teamer last season, he's worked himself into the safety 3 role thus far in camp, as evident from him filling in when Alohi and Derwin missed time due to their birth of the child and injuries respectively. Along with that, on packages that brought Derwin down in the slot, he was the 3rd safety on the field, which is another assurance that he's on the active roster. Then we got JT Woods. The former 3rd rounder out of Baylor back in 2022 hasn't played all that much due to injuries and illnesses, and the coaching staff probably still intrigued at what he has to offer with his elite speed shown at Baylor, but yeah, he has to improve on the tackling department, which has always been an issue for him. He'll definitely have a shorter leash, but will make the roster given how thin this group is. Unfortunately, that means Tony Jefferson, Akeem Dent, and Jalen Phillips will be left off the roster. Tony Jefferson, the longtime Cardinals and Ravens safety, came out of retirement after a stint in the scouting department with the Ravens, and has been running with the 3s in camp. It's looking like an uphill battle for him to make the team as he acclimates back into NFL shape. And yeah, just a random fact, he actually scouting Ladd McConkey during the draft process, which I found hilarious since he's now practicing against him. So yeah, maybe that gives him a slight edge, but yeah, I highly doubt it. Akeem Dent, the former 5-star out of high school, actually played with Asante at Florida State, where he had a decent career. Apparently the Chargers are considering drafting him in the later rounds, but with $5,000 in guaranteed money, that really doesn't support that. He was one of the undrafted guys who had a better shot at making the 53-man roster coming into camp, but is now a long shot to make the team. I think he'll be brought back to the P squad, as the Chargers will want to continue working with him though. Then we got our final guy in Jalen Phillips. The undrafted safety from Clemson could be a practice squad candidate as well, but is just very unlikely to make the final roster, given the talent ahead of him. So yeah, to round up who we have making the 53-man roster on defense, on the defensive line we have 5 guys with Puna Ford at nose tackle, Otito Abonia and Justin Boybe at D tackle, as well as Morgan Fox and Scott Matlock at the end. On the second level, we've got 5 inside linebackers in Denzel Perriman, Junior Colson, Deion Henley, Nick Neiman, and Troy Dye. For our outside linebacker edge group, we have Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, Bud Dupree, and Chris Rumpf. Moving to the back end, we got our 6 corners in Asante Samuel Jr., Christian Fulton, Jasier Taylor, Dean Leonard, Cam Hart, and Tarheeb Still. Lastly, we have the 4 safeties in Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, AJ Finley, and JT Woods. With 25 guys on the defense and 3 special teamers in long snapper Josh Harris, punter J.K. Scott, and Dicker the kicker, it brings us 28 guys on the roster, leaving us with 25 spots on offense. So yeah, be sure to check out that video if you want to see who makes it on that side of the ball. But yeah, well I hope you guys really enjoyed the video, and if you did, feel free to like and subscribe down below, as it really helps out the channel. Anyways, let me know if you guys want more videos like this. But yeah, really appreciate you guys watching the video.